Most people know me by my previous work, which is the ONDU pinhole cameras, which I've been making quite efficiently for the past 13 years. About 2 years ago, after making more than 10,000 of these by hand, I thought it would be a good idea to spice up my life and make a large format camera, which is this beauty that finally exists in an actual physical form. So this camera was brought to life thanks to a Kickstarter campaign that I launched over 2 years ago, and with many almost unbelievable setbacks, we finally have now a functioning camera. And I realized that I actually haven't taken the time to fully explain all of the features and all the design choices that I have made throughout this process. So without further ado, I would like to invite you to check out all of the features that I've crammed into the ONDU Eikan camera range. I will show you all of the movements and pretty much everything that went into building of this camera, so you can have a closer look if this may be a camera for you. So let's get started. When I started my design world, I didn't want to make products that break down. I really loved the notion that something that is carefully crafted can be passed down for generations. That was kind of my pitch that essentially created ONDU. It was 13 years ago, so before these things were really a buzzword like they are today, you know, heirloom and heritage and stuff like that. So if you get one of my cameras, my wish and my hope is that they're made in such a way that they can be either repaired or they're just made in a way that should outlast all of us. And that gives me comfort, knowing that I produce something for the world that is essentially going to outlive me. This path of creating products is not necessarily the easiest because it takes a lot of tedious and repetitive tasks to bring something like this to life. And you know, today with dwindling attention spans, hard workers and people with intense focus are really hard to come by. Not to mention, it's just boring, you know. Sanding these cameras for hours on end, it becomes insanely difficult when you start hitting numbers in the thousands. Anyways, wanted to convey this ethos of building quality products into the ONDU Eikan camera range. And the idea is that I would like to make this camera fully serviceable, modular, and also try to make it fixable with limited tools. So essentially all the screws in this camera are compatible with two hex keys. So everything can be serviced only with 2 hex keys. It was quite an interesting journey to come to this point and try to integrate all of these ideas that I had into this final product. Yeah, I think I managed a pretty good compromise between modern manufacturing techniques coupled with old school, just regular woodworking and joinery to come to this final product. What we're seeing right now is the first iteration. I'm already designing some other products and camera ranges on the side, but honestly, I really needed a break from the previous mega big production before I can really settle in and see which design choices we'll have to make in order to move this forward. So for those of you who are quite new to the ONDU Eikan camera range, I designed 3 cameras in the first batch of production. This is the ONDU Eikan Standard. I call it the Standard, which is the basic kind of model, even though it's packed full of features. So this camera is the Standard. Then we have the camera, which we call the Range. It's essentially the same camera as this, although it does have an extra 10 centimeters of rear extension. So that means we can go from 32 centimeters to 42 centimeters of full extension from the lens board to the film plane. And then also on top of that, there's a 4x10 camera, which also has the same 42 centimeters of extension. And the idea behind the Eikan was that when you start with the standard camera, if you want to upgrade it at a later time, you can just add these extensions and longer bellows, and you can convert the standard camera into the range. This gives you an option of extended bellows length. On top of that, it also gives you the option to swap the camera bodies to the 4x10. That was my idea when I started designing this, that you can just have one regular chassis and then build upon it. So eventually I'm probably going to add a 6x17 back to it, although it might already work just as a magnetic attachment to the regular Eikan camera system. So this is the camera body, and on that we could join the range extension. So these two things clip together and we have a fully functioning camera. Or we do a 4x10 attachment and we can change it to a 4x10. So this is something that I haven't seen really around in field cameras. There's maybe some system cameras like some monorail stuff from Sinar. I think that they had some sort of like cross compatibility and stuff like that, but I haven't really seen this utilized in a field camera, and a relatively lightweight one for that matter. We're going to start by taking one of the standard cameras, put it on a tripod and see all of the features that I've managed to put in it, and then we'll continue with the range and the 4x10, and then I'm also going to show you how the swap between each component is made, because this hasn't really been covered and people have been asking me quite a lot. All right, let's get to it. Here we have the standard 4x5 Eikan, and I've already put it on the tripod. It has the standard tripod mounts. To unfold the camera, we release all of the three knobs and lift the camera until it reaches 90 degrees. There are two locking pins on each side which prevent the camera from overshooting. So if we would unlock these, and I will show a bit later why we use this, it would go even further than 90 degrees. So let's lock these in. They're gonna catch, and we have 90s. Now we can lock the rear standard, and before proceeding to lift up the front standard, I recommend that we take at least 2 turns, maybe 3, so that when we lift the front standard, it doesn't catch on the bellows. Let's see how this would look if we didn't put the front standard a bit forward. So if we try to lift it now, you see it's catching here on the bellows. This is just because the front arms are quite tall, so we can get more rise in our movements. So let's continue doing it how it should be. So when we lift the front standard, we go all the way back and up, and when we come over, we have these 2 indexing pins that we unlock, and we can slide it and it snaps into the 0 position. All right, now we can proceed with locking and tightening all of the other tabs. And there's also a little felt protector that I put in there just in case when it gets transported all over the world that we don't get any scratches. And I prefer actually to use it on an everyday basis. Here we have our camera, and this is how it looks like when we get it unfolded. So to view the ground glass, we have a ground glass protector that we just remove by sliding out. It sits into the back like that. And now the camera is ready to receive a lens. There's already a lens board in there, so I'm going to remove that one. And nothing new here. This has been done for hundreds of years. So just lock it in and everything functions as it should. Now I'm going to show you how much the camera can extend. It takes quite a bit of turns until we come to this final position. So this is the ONDU standard fully extended. And as you can see, the camera is pretty sturdy. I'm putting quite a lot of force, and because of this construction that I've made, it's unbelievably strong. So this is one of these features that I'm really proud of that I've come up with, and it makes the camera, at least in this direction, very, very sturdy. Let's continue by putting the camera all the way back so we can show you some of the movements that are incorporated in this design. So the front standard of the camera has relatively regular movements as any other large format field camera. There's these lines that you can follow to keep the lens plane to the film relatively parallel. And there are these special locking knobs on the bottom that enable you to tighten everything. There's also swing and shift and all of these regular features that you would find in pretty much every camera today. There's also these two notches, which can kind of help you to put it to zero, at least by feeling. So for instance, we're gonna lock this when we're satisfied. Some camera movements that people have asked me is if the camera has base axis tilt or if it has lens axis tilt, and it actually has both thanks to how it's made. So for the following movements, we're gonna loosen up these tabs, we're gonna unlock these, and then we can continue by going all the way up, and now we can tighten it slightly and then use the remaining force that's left in the knob to kind of fine-tune our, you see, it takes a bit of getting used to, but it definitely will get improved when I incorporate the independent movements for this camera. So if we want to set it up back to zero, we just unlock these tabs, we slide it back in, and it's zeroed back where it should be. I've also incorporated a few leveling bulbs. This one is on the side of the camera, and there's also one for horizontal and vertical on the back of the camera. While we're on the subject of the back is attached to the camera magnetically. That means if we want to move from a horizontal to a vertical position, we just remove these tabs and attach it back magnetically. These magnets are relatively strong. It takes quite a bit of force to remove it, so there's no fear of them popping out at any time. To load the film, we just use this bailback design and load the camera and lock it in place. Make our exposure, use the bailback again to release some tension and put it out of the holder. All of the cameras come already mounted with a Fresnel screen, so the image is very, very bright, even in not the best conditions. If we would like to use Graflock compatible backs, we just remove the ground glass like this. It's held in place by these carbon fiber springs. There are locking tabs on the side which have been hidden for locking various backs onto the camera. So here we're going to use the Lomograflok. It locks to the camera just like that, doesn't go anywhere. And for the Lomograflok, I've made this dedicated offset focusing screen, which is on the exact film plane as the Lomograflok, so you can compose your image before taking the shot with relative ease, instead of using the supplied shim, which puts a lot of stress on pretty much any camera that I've tried out there. So this is available in my shop as well. And when we want to put the ground glass back, we do it like that. When we're finished shooting, we just put it back in there, lock it, and the camera is ready to go. So let's say we have a wide angle lens on here. How would we get the bed to be out of the way? So before I mentioned these locking tabs that hold the camera horizontally, we just unlock these, bring this back, bring the front standard all the way where we can. It depends on your lens. And then essentially what you got to do is bring this back, it's perpendicular to your film plane, and then you move the bed forward. I think this is called drop bed design or something like that. And essentially it moves the front focusing rail away from the shot of whatever you're taking a picture of. So I haven't personally used this so far, and I have not heard people complaining about the bed being in sight, but I imagine with wide angle formats that this could be an issue. Eventually the camera is going to get back bellows for these very wide angle lenses, and I'm also working on bringing to life the recessed lens board so you can get a bit more extra movement in the camera itself. What else? Another feature that I forgot to mention actually is that the camera's bellows are magnetically attached. Some people are quite upset at this feature, but I really don't see a problem with it. I've been making the ONDU pinhole cameras, like I said, for 13 years, and none of these magnets have ever failed. So, and in this case, if anything does get broken down the line, I don't know how it could, but it's easily replaceable. So the camera bellows are held in place by these magnets, and there's a little notch that we use to take the back frame off. And then on the front we also have a little tab in the front, and this is pretty much the whole camera. So without the bellows and without the bag, the camera doesn't seem like much, but yeah, that's essentially how cameras are. It's just two frames and a bunch of bellows to hold the light from the lens to the film plane. So yeah, that's the camera in its skeleton form. And to reattach the bellows, there's a lip on the front. Tiny lip. I agree that this lip could be more protruded, and I will definitely make it so in the future. And it essentially locks in place, and you see here it kind of engages so it doesn't move. And then we just guide the bellows all the way back, snap them in place, and the camera is light tight when we put the back on, of course. Like I said, this removable feature of the bellows is important when we try to swap the standard for the range and the range for the 4x5. Let's put the back on there again, and I think maybe it's time that we continue showing the difference between the standard and the range. So let's proceed with the 4x5 range. Everything else is the same like in the standard, so we're gonna move the front standard a bit forward. Let's lock everything so it doesn't move, and we lift the front like that, lock it in place. There we go. And remove the little protective felt, and we can go and fully extend it before doing the actual range extension. This would go all the way to 32 centimeters. There's a lock that prevents you from going any further. To extend the rear back to 42, we're gonna loosen these two bottom knobs over here and slowly bring the whole thing back. Alrighty. This is now the camera at its full 42 centimeter extension, and we're gonna see the difference between this and this. So you see, it's just a 10 centimeter difference. The camera weighs only maybe 100 and something grams more than the regular variant. So a word of caution though, this full extension is not the most stable. So if we try to press forward here, it's quite strong because we have this angular kind of reinforcement in the whole front standard, while in the back of the camera there's only 6 millimeters of aluminum bonded to this front part, which is also rigid, but the leverage forces on this kind of back part do present a bit of wobble. So slow shutter speeds, winds, and so on, I would be a bit careful. I imagine 42 centimeters of extension for some macro work or maybe some long telephoto lenses, but honestly, I haven't used it so far. So let's bring this back. Maybe we move on to the 4x10, which hasn't been showed online that much at all. So if we continue to the 4x5 camera, it's obviously quite a bit bigger than 4x5 camera, and it has pretty much the same features as the other cameras. So let's just put it here on the tripod. Alrighty, lock it in place and let's unfold it. Like I said, the camera has features like the other models. We move the front standard a bit forward, And even here, even more, we would maybe have to take the front standard a bit out so that because of this pronounced taper of the bellows, it can scratch even faster. Although I haven't really encountered this issue. Let's see if we can make it like a more dramatic kind of looking camera. Yeah, let's switch the camera view to back. The ground glass on this camera is protected by a magnetic plate thingy. And the camera comes by default with a Fresnel screen. You can remove it if you wish to. It's not laminated or anything together. It's just kind of sandwiched. And there's a few tabs holding this whole construction together. And when we want to load film, we just remove this. It has pretty much the bailback design as the 4x5, but just that this one is a bit different. So the springs are currently carbon fiber springs, although eventually I'm probably going to switch to wire spring steel, something in that ballpark. To show you how I load film, I'm going to demonstrate it on this wet plate holder that I've made recently. It's going to be the first wet plate holder that's fully serviceable. I haven't seen anything out there like it. So it has these screws that enable you to service the internal components of the back. It has a magnetic back, just like many features on the camera. All the magnets are hidden, and this thing is actually magnetic stainless steel that has been powder coated so it will not corrode. This holder has seen some action already, so it's not the cleanest, but let's show you how it gets loaded into the back of the camera. So we're going to use this bailback system to alleviate some tension from the back, and we just essentially slide it in until it engages. We remove it, and the springs are gonna push it back in its place. You know, this is not really rocket science. This has been done for hundreds of years. So, but yeah, it's how it's done in this particular camera. I'm going to dive a bit deeper into the actual wet plate holders and all the other stuff that I've been making a bit later. The 4x10 camera can be swapped with the range module to make it a 4x5 camera. But if some people don't prefer that and like to keep the 4x10 as the standard variant, you can remove the back of the 4x10, and I've made a pretty nice looking 4x5 reduction back, which you just snap into place like that. And I have 4x5 reduction on 4x5 cameras. It's again made with the same materials as the other backs. I'm really happy how this turned out. This veneer inlay and stuff like that, I think it makes a nice looking product. This thing is probably going to be available soon. I've put it through some tests and it looks and works pretty good. I would like to now show you how the various components from the camera can be swapped between each other. This is, I'm going to remove all the bellows from the upcoming explanations so that we're going to have a bit easier time understanding what's going on and what is what. I'm also going to remove the backs so that we only have the frames of the cameras available. So if we look at the ONDU standard, the rear standard is bolted to the frame of the camera body. So that means it won't be able to move. There are these 10 connection points that join everything together and make like a sandwich that I think this is like 8 millimeters of aluminum. That's why it's so lightweight and quite sturdy at the same time. To start the disassembly process, we're gonna remove these 10 screws from the bottom of the camera until we're left with just the rear standard. And now I'm going to show you how we are going to join these extension tabs with the actual part. So we're going to add these screws here. These are all stainless steel screws. These M3 screws, we got to be careful that we don't over tighten them, because aluminum is a relatively soft alloy, so we should not force it. Once we're done with assembling this extension part to the back of the camera, we're gonna take our empty chassis the main component, the main kind of part of the camera assembly, and proceed to join these components together. We're going to take these lock nuts and put them underneath the camera, and you see this little tab here. It acts as a kind of a stop guide so that the screw doesn't twist into infinity, but it actually locks into the camera. Now the last thing that remains is to connect this piece with the two rails, because if we don't do so, these rails are moving independently and we want them to move simultaneously when we go in and out. So we just kind of slide this here underneath and slowly rotate. Let's see if I'm going to be able to do this with one hand, until all of the screws have engaged the holes. The reason there's two extra holes is in future, in case there's gonna be a lot of swapping of back and forth, two extra screws in case some of them do get worn out over time. This is just thinking in the future in case it will be necessary, although I don't think so, because there's 4 millimeters of aluminum there. That's your range extension bolted onto the camera. So now we can try and go all the way out. That's how it looks, and you tighten it here. All right, and to put it back, we just loosen these knobs and let's do more loose and slide the hole back. Now that we have the range extension attached, we can proceed with mounting of the bellows. There's a little tab down here that we rotate to the bottom side, and like I said, there's a little lip that catches the edge of the bellow frames, which are also made out of powder coated steel. And we continue by extending until it clicks into place. So that's done. And now we just need to add the actual back of the camera. And now the camera has been successfully converted from the ONDU Eikan standard to the Eikan range. And if we would like to continue by changing this to the 4x10, we continue by removing the bellows. We should start removing these 4 screws. And now we're gonna remove these 2 pins by unthreading this piece and the bottom piece. Now this whole assembly gets a bit wobbly, so let's be a bit careful when we're removing it. All right, so what we got here is the Eikan body, the 4x10 chassis, and 4x5 range extension. So now we're gonna continue swapping it to the 4x5. So we're gonna get this out of the way, slide this assembly just like this, and like I said, until we put at least one of these knobs in, the whole thing is a bit wobbly. So this is kind of the only, let's say, delicate part, if we can even call it like that. We add the washer, tighten everything. When the first one is in, it's already much easier to handle everything. Now we can continue by adding this kind of joining components to the whole assembly by sliding it underneath, attaching the screws. And there you have it. We're almost done with the conversion of the 4x5 range into the 4x10 Panoramikku camera. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to make this in the easiest way as possible, and this is the best I could come up with. We're gonna lock it, put it to 0, camera is almost ready to receive some bellows. The bellows themselves were quite a saga and almost impossible for me to produce, but in the end I managed. Here they are. So we're gonna position them here so that they engage, and that's it. Bellows themselves are quite light and don't sag, but eventually if you're going to leave them fully extended for a long period of time, there's going to be some inevitable sag, just because that's how gravity works, no? So there you have it. The camera has been successfully converted from the 4x5 range to the 4x10. I think it's a relatively straightforward process, and I hope you enjoyed looking at how I tackled this problem, and I wonder if this feature is going to get used a lot. So far, I've only received a few inquiries about people interested in converting the 4x5 range into the 4x10 or vice versa. But like I said, the 4x10 can be easily converted to a 4x5 with the use of this reduction back. So I hope you enjoyed looking at all of the features that I've designed and incorporated into the ONDU Eikan camera range. And if you have any other suggestions or details that you would like me to go more in depth into, let me know in the comments below, and I'll do my best to accommodate that as soon as possible. And before I wrap things up, I would like to show you some of the other projects that I've been working on, and they're going to be released soon, but not after I have fully tested them on the field. Some of you might know that I used to take quite a lot of wet plate photos back in the days, before wet plate photography was even such a big thing as it is today. But I never pursued it as much as I wanted to. And now that I have my own cameras and my own proprietary gear, I don't really have an excuse anymore. I've designed some wet plate holders, and this is, for instance, the 4x5 version. It looks like any other wet plate holder on the market, but this one is different, not just because it's mine. But essentially, this is the only fully serviceable wet plate holder that exists to my knowledge. Maybe there are others, but I have not yet come across. What makes it different is that there are these, let's see if this focus, yeah, there are these screws on each side that enable you to fully disassemble the back. So the back of the holder is magnetic. There's also some springs here that hold the glass or tin plate to the actual plane. And then we are able to disassemble this part and take the dark slide out and also service the light trap. This is something that I haven't seen done anywhere before, and I think it might be a pretty cool holder to use. I've shot quite a few dozen plates with it so far, and I've had zero malfunctions. This is the 4x5. Here's the 4x10 variant. It looks like any other holder, but this one is different. It has these screws that enable you to remove everything. Also, it's magnetically attached to the actual frame, and the magnets are hidden underneath, and where they are inserted, they're also sealed with epoxy so that silver nitrate cannot get into them and damage them down the road. So these are your holders. They're not the lightest because this is made out of stainless steel, so but they are insanely rigid. That's that. They're going to be available in all regular sizes and irregular sizes probably soon on my website, after I take a bit of a breather this summer and enjoy some photography related expeditions that I'm looking forward to for replenishing my soul, not just my bank account. What else? I've also designed a silver nitrate or a sensitizing tank. So this is the 4x5 version. They exist in all other various formats that you can imagine. And it's 3D printed, and what sets this one apart from the rest, this prototype only has 8 screws, which are stainless steel, and that means that silver nitrate, which is quite corrosive and likes to damage stuff, has not that much options to wreak havoc on your gear. I've tested it in the field so far. It looks and works pretty well. I'm going to make some minor adjustment before I release it to the public. I'm also still debating on how the pouring and removal of silver nitrate is going to go. There are a few options available out there in the world, but I'm trying to always make something different, and I'm going to give it a go here as well. Another thing that I did I made a transport box for glass plates. And this one is one of my early prototypes that I have just used. The idea is that you can fully submerge your plates after exposing, before fixing, bring them home, fix, and then do your usual stuff. There's probably other ways that I'm not aware of, but this making a box that is completely watertight and airtight is something that I really wanted to do for a long time. And this one so far didn't cause me any problems. We'll see how it goes down the line. And also what I like about it is when you really clean your plates in your studio or whatever and bring them to the field, it's really nice to have a hermetically sealed box that prevents any dust or debris or whatever contaminants on entering these plates. So this is quite sturdy for its size, very lightweight, and it's going to be available again in all possible imaginable sizes that the 3D printers can churn up. I'm going to show you some pictures that I made with these holders. This was made in Komiža in Croatia. I'm really pleased that I'm finally taking wet plate photos again after all of these years. And actually on this photo, which it's not much, it's just a picture of my van in front of the Paklenica mountain range. But the exposure on this one is pretty much how it looked on the spot. And I remember taking this photo, standing in front of my dark box and thinking to myself, I dreamt about this moment of traveling with my van and taking pictures and just being there, and I have goosebumps right now. Yeah, it's such a special thing to just take pictures in such a slow and deliberate way like it is with wet plate photography. And I really hope that I'm going to be able to pursue this passion, not just camera making, but also getting to use them more frequently from now on. So thank you for staying put. I hope this wasn't too long, because I think I've been talking for a few hours now in the studio. I don't know how long the actual video is going to take, but thanks for standing by. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments below if you would like me to talk more about other stuff, or if you have any other comments, suggestions, and critiques are always welcome. And that's how I learn, and that's how I improve and make even nicer cameras. Thanks, and see you soon.